We begin the Gemara today on Daf Mem Ches Amud Aleph, right at the beginning of the Yamud, Omar Rove. This Gemara is a continuation to what I brought before, a braise regarding a Yefas Toyar, a woman that's brought in, a Goyish woman that's brought in at the time of the war. And in that braise we saw a machlokes between the Rabbanon and Rab Shimon ben Elazar, how you can be Megayer very quickly without waiting usually a month time. According to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, if you make her into a shivcha kananis and then afterwards you free her, so you can free her against her will, and she doesn't even have to accept upon herself the mitzvahs, and she'll become a yid. Whereas according to the Rabbanon, it seemed from the Braise that over there by Yefas Toyar, you can't make her into a shivcha kananis and then free her because she's going to have to be mekabel el mitzvahs. So only if she accepts it, then you can do this. And similar, the Gemara said regarding every eved, anytime you meshachar eved, he has to be mekabel mitzvahs. So that's the machlokes here between Rabbanon and Rab Shimon ben Elazar. When you free an eved and he becomes a yid, according to the Rabbanon, he has to be mekabel on himself mitzvahs, and according to Rab Shimon ben Elazar, he does not. So the Gemara now here will bring the source of their machlokes. Omar Rave said, my time with Rab Shimon ben Elazar. What's the source of Rab Shimon ben Elazar's opinion that when you free a eved, he does not have to accept upon himself mitzvahs? There's a pasuk that says, and this is by a Korban Pesach, called Eved Ish Miknas Kosef, that if you have an Eved and you bought him, so you have to do a bris milah for him, and then you can bring a Korban Pesach. So the question is, why does it say Eved Ish? This halacha applies when a person, a man, that is, owns an Eved. Does that mean only a Ish? V'lo Eved Isha? If a woman owns an Eved, so this halacha would not apply to her regarding her eating from the Korban Pesach? There's no reason to distinguish between a ish or a isha that are owning a eved to be able to bring the Korban Pesach. So rather, what's the pshat over here? Elo eved ish. What this means is that if this is an eved ish, meaning if this person that is an eved, he himself is an eved. Not, in other words, not an eved of an ish, but rather an eved, a man which is an eved. Atamal bal karchay. So when you free him and you're making a bris milah for him, you can, or even when you buy him actually, you make the bris milah for him against his will. And then also, the same thing also, when you come to free him, you also can free him against his will. But v'i ata mal ben ish bal karchay. But when it comes to buying, or again, when it comes to the gaydus, that is, to be mal, any person that comes from a goy to become a ger, so let's say a person comes to be a ger, and he wants to bring his son as well to be a ger, and his son is already a gadol. So you can't be megayer your son against his will. He has to accept upon himself the mitzvahs. So that's what you see over here in this pasuk, that when it comes to an eved, and he's coming to be become a ger, or he's coming to, that is to be an eved, or he's going to be freed, so then it can be against his will. He doesn't have to accept upon himself the mitzvahs. But when it comes to a regular gaydus, he's going to have to accept upon himself mitzvahs. But Rabbanon, and according to the Rabbanon, Oma Ule, so Ule says as follows: Kishem shiatamal ben ish bal karachay. Just like when it comes to a ben ish, any guy that's coming to be megayer, you can't do it against his will without him accepting upon himself the mitzvahs. Kach yatamal eved ish bal karachay. So too an eved of a man, or an eved, a man which is an eved, that is, a ish over here, according to this drasha, and according to the drasha before, means a person that's a gadol and a bardas. Because he's an eved ish, he's a bardas, you can't be megayed him, even if it's buying him to be an eved, or freeing him from being an eved to becoming a yid, you can't do it with bal karchay, against his will, without him accepting the mitzvahs. So he doesn't hold of this drasha that we just said before, that it says eved ish to exclude a ben ish. Fragt the Gemara, ve'ela haksiv kol eved ish. So according to him, what's the meaning of these words, eved ish? It certainly doesn't mean the eved of an ish. We wanted to say it meant eved ish, an eved which is a ish, as opposed to a ben ish, to every other guy that comes to be megayer. But according to the Rabbanon, we don't darshan it this way, so what is the words eved ish teaching me? It says the Gemara, hahumi baile likadishmul. According to the Rabbanon, we darshan like what Shmuel said. Shmuel learns out from here, Hamafker avdoi, if a person declares his eved to be hefker, yatzel lecheres. Just by this itself, he's completely free, and vein tzarich get shichror, and he does not need any get shichror to free him. When a eved gets freed, there are two things that happens. Number one, the monetary ownership you have over him is not there anymore, and also he becomes a yid. So usually you need to get shichur that it should fully take effect, that it should become a yid. So he's saying from this pasuk we learn once you declare your eved to be hefker, that's enough, and he becomes a yid. Where did we learn this from? Shenemar kol eved ish miknas kosef. What does this mean? Eved ish. If he's an eved that has a ish, which is a master over him, v'loi. Sorry, again, this is the Gemara's question, like what it asked before. Eved ish, v'lo eved isha. What does this mean here when it says the eved of an ish? Does that mean not an eved of an isha? Why should there be any distinction? Ella, the drasha is, like we just said, eved sheyesh rishus l'rabbi olav. An eved that has a master. The word ish over here means an eved of a master over him, kari eved. So he is an eved, but if he doesn't have any more the possession of his master over him, because his master declared him to be hefker, so then ein korei eved. He's not an eved anymore. So if he's not an eved, there's no one that has possession over him, so he also doesn't have any more the halachas of an eved, he becomes a full yid. That's what we learn out from here according to the Rabbanan. Maskefla Rav Papa. So now Rav Papa asks on the whole premise that the Gemara said here. Gemara before brought this braisa where we see this machlekes between the Rabbanon and Rab Shimon ben Elazar regarding a Yefas Toyar, which is a Goyish woman, whether there's a way to have her be Megayer by forcing her even without having her accept mitzvahs. The Rabbanon said that you can't, and Rab Shimon ben Elazar says you can. And the Gemara compared that and said that the same machlekes applies also to every Eved, that you free him, whether you can free him with against his will or he has to accept upon himself the mitzvahs. So Rav Papa disagrees to this comparison. Maskala Rav Papa asks a question, when did the Rabbanon say that you can't be Megayer someone without them accepting the mitzvahs? That's only regarding a Yefas Toyar, this Goyish woman, because at this point she has no connection to mitzvahs whatsoever. So therefore here he says that the only way you could skip this Yerach Yomim, this month that you would have to wait until you Megayer her, is if you have her accept mitzvahs. Aval Eved, the Shaykh b'mitzvahs. But when it comes to an Eved, that as soon as he became an Eved, he already has to fulfill mitzvahs like a woman, as we mentioned before, Rashi brings the drasha from the Gemara Chagige, that he's already partially a Yid. So Hachanami over here, I could say that the Rabbanan will agree as well, that this Eved, when you free him, he does not again have to accept mitzvahs. So everybody agrees that an Eved that's being freed, you don't have to have him accept mitzvahs again. And the Gemara brings a rai from a braisa to this. The Tanya, we learned in the braisa, echad ger, it comes to a person that's coming to be megayer, vechad lekech eved, menoevet kechavim, or you're buying an eved from a guy, so tzarech lekabel. Then he has to accept upon himself mitzvahs. But from the Gemara now says, what do we see from this braisa? Ha lekeach mi Yisrael. But if you're buying this eved from a yid, so he's already an eved. He already accepted upon himself mitzvahs once, or he's already fulfilling mitzvahs like a isha until this point. Then ain't tzarech lekabel. So now, when you're buying him or you're freeing him, he does not have to be mekabel mitzvahs again, and that's even according to the Rabbanon. Okay, so Mani, the Gemara will prove actually that this Braisa here is the Rabbanon. Rab Shimon ben Elazar, this Braisa, who's speaking here? If this Braisa would be Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Ha'amar lekech mun ha'evdi kechavim, nami en tzarech lekabel. Rab Shimon ben Elazar said that an Eved, even when you buy an Eved from a guy, and he, to some degree there's a gatus here, it becomes an Eved, and he has to do mitzvahs like a Yid, like an Isha. So even at that point, when you buy from a guy, Rab Shimon ben Elazar said before, even then you don't have to be mekabel upon himself mitzvahs. And this Braisa says you do. So it can't be Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Elolav Rabbanon. So who is this Braisa here? This is the Rabbanon. Shma Mina. So what I see from here is that even according to the Rabbanon, when you buy a Evet from another guy, then tzarech lekabel. At that point, he has to accept upon himself mitzvahs. If you're buying the Evet from Yisrael and he already fulfills mitzvahs, ain't tzarech lekabel. He does not have to be mekabel upon himself mitzvahs again. Now, so the Gemara comes back now to the Braisa that we had before, which spoke about all the halachas of Gerus, and over there it equated a ger and an eved meshuchre, when you free a eved to one another. Now the question is, ve'ela kashya, now the question is, echad ger ve'echad eved meshuchre. When it said that a ger, and when you free a eved, it has the same halacha. And the Gemara before said, regarding what does it have the same halacha? That both of them have to accept upon themselves mitzvahs, according to who is that Braisa. We just explained that both Rab Shimon ben Elazar and the Rabbanan as well agree that an Eved that's already fulfilling mitzvahs, when he's being freed, does not have to be mekabel upon himself mitzvahs again. So the Gemara answers, there's a different shot there. Kitanya over there, when it compares the Eved Meshuchrer to the Ger, Linyan Tefillah Tanya. It's just saying regarding the halacha of Tefillah, that not only a Ger, you have to be Toivel for his Gerus, but an Eved Meshuchrer as well, even though you were Toivel him once before when he became an Eved, but over here, when you're freeing him and he becomes a full Yid, a full Ger, he has to Toivel again. That was the halacha that it was comparing them to. Tanya. That's regarding what it says. Tana Rabbanon, in a Braisa we learned as follows. Now this is Gemara, we brought up the halacha of Yefas Toyar. So the Gemara brings here the halachas, the sources, the psukim about a Yefas Toyar. The Gilcha is Reisha, so you bring this Yefas Toyar in from a war, and so the pasuk says you should cut off the hair from her head. V'asasa es siparneha. Now what does this mean regarding the nails? The Torah says the lashon v'asasa. What does it mean? Rabbi Eliezer says takuts. It means that she should cut her nails. Rabbi Kiva says tagdal. She should let her nails grow. So Rabbi Eliezer says, I'll prove to you my opinion. Nemra asiyah b'roish. It says what you have to do regarding the head. And v'nemra asiyah b'tzarpanayim. And it says what you have to do regarding the hairs. So mala alon avara, just like regarding the head, it says with gilcha that you have to cut the hairs from the head. Afkan avara. So to over here, regarding the nails, v'asasa means that you should cut the nails, similar to the hairs of the head. Rabbi Kiva says, no, the comparison is different. Nema asiyah b'roish. It says what you do regarding the head. V'nema asiyah b'tziparnayim. And it also says you have to do something with the nails. Mala alon nivel, just like the point of cutting the hair, shaving off the hair of the head is in order for it to be looking disgusting. Afkan nivel. So to over here, the point is regarding the nails is for it to be looking disgusting, and that's when you let the nails grow. Now, proof for what Rabbi Eliezer says, we can see from another place where it says in the pasuk, ben Shaul yorad lekras melech, came to the king, le'asa raglav, le'asa sfamai. So it uses the term of asa regarding the feet and also regarding his mustache. My asiyah. What does asiyah mean in that pasuk? Havara. It meant he didn't cut his toenails or he didn't cut the mustache. So over here as well, the term asiyah means to cut the nails. Tana Rabbanon, we learned regarding the Yefas Toyar. The pasuk says, "Uvachsa es avia ves ima," that she cries for her father and her mother. So what does this mean? Rabbi Eliezer says, avia means avia mamish, that she cries for her father, that she left her father, and ima also means ima mamish, she cries for her mother that she left. Rabbi Kiva says, avia v'ima zu avedis kechavim. This means that she cries about the fact that she's leaving her avodah zarah. That's what it refers to. And where do you see this term regarding avodah zarah? There's a pasuk that says, "Oimrim le'etz avi ata," and the continuation of the pasuk over there is "Le'evan ati ladetanu." So we see that you can refer to avodah zarah as avi ata and so on. So that's what avia ima means over here. Then it says in the pasuk, how long does she cry? Yerach yomim. What does this mean? Yerach is shleishim yom. Yerach is a month, 30 days. Shimon ben Elazar says tishim yom. She has to cry for 90 days. Because it says yerach, that's shleishim yom. That's 30 days. Then, it also says, again, yerach is shleishim. Yerach is 30 days. And then it says yomim, shleishim. When it says yomim, that's another 30 days. And then when it says va'achakein, it says va'achakein tovi eleo ba'alta, the word va'achakein only afterwards is adding again shleishim, another 30 days. So the Gemara asks on this cheshbon of Rab Shimon ben Elazar, maskef lo ravine eime, maybe I should say according to his interpretation of the pasuk that yerach is shleishim, yerach is 30 days. Then when it says yomim, days similar to the number of days that were mentioned before, that's another shleishim. And then when it says again va'achakein, after all these number of days, and you repeat that again, so maybe it means ki hani, that you have to wait another amount of days like these that we just mentioned, which is 60 days. Kashya. So this remains a kashya, why he doesn't interpret it this way. Tana Rabbanon, so going back to the halacha of an eved. Mekaimin avodim she'enam malim. We can keep an eved even if he did not make a bris. Usually a eved, you have to have a tefillah, you have to have a bris, he becomes partially a yid, but even if he didn't agree to make a bris, you can keep him as an eved. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel, this is Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. Rabbi Kiva says, Ei mekaimen, you do not keep an eved, they did not make a bris. Amalei Rabbi Shmuel said to Rabbi Kiva, there's a pasuk that says regarding Shabbos, the yunafesh ben amascha, that your ben amascha, which is an eved, has to rest on Shabbos. And what is that speaking about? It's speaking about an eved that did not have a bris milah, as the Gemara will soon prove. So therefore we see that you can have this eved, and the Torah is telling you that he has to rest on Shabbos. Amalei, so Rabbi Akiva says, you're right, that pasuk is speaking about an eved that did not make a bris, but not because you're allowed to keep an eved without a bris, but over there, b'likeach eved ben hashmoshes, you bought the eved right before Shabbos, evelehispik l'moilai, and he didn't get a chance to do the bris for him, akasav medaber. That's what the pasuk is speaking about. But immediately after Shabbos, he has to make a bris, and if not, you have to let him go. Okay, so now the Gemara will explain, how do we know that this pasuk, v'ninafish ben hamascha, is actually speaking about an eved that you did not make a bris for? Maybe it's speaking about an eved that you did. So the Gemara says, the kol al memiyis, both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva agree, v'yinafish ben hamascha be'eved odol ksiv, that's a pasuk that speaks about an eved, an odol that did not have a bris. My mashma, how do they know this? The Tanya, because we learned in the Braisa, it says, v'yinafish ben hamascha, this pasuk is be'eved odol akasav medaber. It speaks about an eved that's an odol. How do you know it's an eved odol? Maybe it's an eved that did have a bris. So the Braisa says, Keshehu Oimer, there's another pasuk that it says regarding Shabbos, Laman Yanuach, Avdacha, Va'amascha, Kamoicha, that your maidservant, your maidservant should also rest like you on Shabbos, Harei Eved Ma'al Omer. That speaks about an Eved that you made a bris for him. Homani Mekayim V'Nafish Ben Hamascha. Why does it say again over here that your Eved should rest on Shabbos? Be'eved Odol. It speaks about an Eved Odol. That's how we know, according to everybody, that this pasuk is speaking about an Eved Odol. Now the Braisa continues to darshan what it says over there further in the pasuk, vehager, that a ger should rest on Shabbos as well. Ze ger toishav. This does not refer to a ger that was Magai that converted, but it refers to a ger toishav, which is an individual that accepts upon himself to not serve avodah zarah and to do the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach, but he's still not a yid. He could eat things that are not kosher and so on. So this ger toishav, the pasuk is saying, has to rest on Shabbos. You say that the word ger refers to a ger toishav, maybe it means a ger literally that becomes a yid. But no, there's another pasuk that says, "V'gercha asher b'sharecha," a ger that lives in your cities that he has to keep Shabbos. How do you get tzedek omer? So it already says a ger tzedek. Homani mekayim ve'ager. So when it says here again ve'ager, what is this referring to? Ze ger toishav. This refers to a ger toishav that has to rest on Shabbos. From Rashi, it's mashma that this means that a ger toishav has to keep Shabbos. Not allowed to be mechal Shabbos. Other Rishonim say that it doesn't mean that a ger toishav should keep Shabbos. Adarabah, it says regarding a guy, even a ger toishav, that if he keeps Shabbos, he's chayiv misa. Rather, it means that a yid should not use a ger toishav to do malacha for him. Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, a person buys an eved from a guy, and this eved does not want to do a bris. So you keep him with you and you try to convince him, you talk to him about it for 12 months. If after this time he doesn't want to make a bris, so then you sell him back to a guy. So Rabbanan said the statement of Rabbi Shua ben Levi in front of Rav Papa, and Keman, according to who is this? Deloi ke Rav Akiva. It's not like Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbi Akiva, because if you would be following Rabbi Akiva, Ha'amar ei mekaymen. Rabbi Akiva says you can't keep an eved. As soon as he doesn't want to make a bris, you have to let him go immediately. Amul Rav Papa, so Rav Papa said, not necessarily. Afil etayim Rabbi Akiva, this could be even according to Rabbi Akiva. Why? Hanemili heiche dele paskala milse. When did Rabbi Akiva say you have to let the eved that doesn't want to make a bris go immediately if he did not stop his previous behavior of who he is to be a guy and so on? So then you have to let him go. But if when he came to be an eved, he really accepted upon himself to be a yid or to be partially a yid, and he stopped his previous behavior, elamai, then he doesn't want to make the bris, but paska, because he stopped his previous behavior, you could keep him for the 12 months to see if he'll make a bris. Amar Rav Kahane, so Rav Kahane said, Amrita l'shmaite kamei de Rav Zvid min Nerda. I said this halacha here in front of Rav Zvid from Nerda, that this is even according to Rabbi Akiva. Amali, and he said to me, if even Rabbi Akiva agrees that in such a case you can keep him and wait for 12 months, so ki amalei Rabbi Akiva, b'leikeach eved ben hashmoshes. When Rabbi Akiva went and explained that the pasuk, when it said before, L'man yanuach avdecha, or when it says v'yinofish ben hamascha, that pasuk refers to an eved odol. And the only way you can have an eved odol is because he was bought right before Shabbos. Why do you have to have such a case? Lishani leha. Why can't he give him this answer right over here, that in the case that this eved was makabel upon himself, he was paisik his behavior from before, in such a case you can keep him for 12 months. You should have given this answer. So the Gemara says, he gave one of two options. True, you're right, this is also an answer he could have given. He's giving another option that even if he did not accept upon himself, but if you bought him right before Ben Hashmoshes, that pasuk of Ben Amascha would apply. Another halach here, Shalach Rav Mishmei de Rabbi Loi. He sent from the name from Rabbi Loi. V'chol Rabbeisa Amru li Mishmei. And my rabbis also told me in the name of Rabbi Loi. Ezeu Eved Arol Shemuta L'Kaimai. Who is an Eved Arol that you're allowed to keep him as an Eved? Zeh Shalachai Rabbi Al Menas Shalei L'Mailai. If this was the condition that the Eved made with you right in the beginning when you bought him, that he's not becoming a regular Eved Kanani, which has a partial Gatus and a Tvila and a Mila, he wants to be an Eved and still remain a guy, with that condition. Shalei L'Mailai, without a bris. So then, that's the Eved Adol that the Pasuk is speaking about. The condition is acceptable. Amru Rabbanan Kamei Rav Papa. So Rabbanan said this halacha in front of Rav Papa, and again they said command the like Rabbi Akiva. According to who is this? Not like Rabbi Akiva. Why? The Rabbi Akiva. If we follow Rabbi Akiva's opinion, Ha'amar Eimekayim. Rabbi Akiva says you could never keep an eved that is not ready to make a bris. Amru Rav Papa. So Rav Papa answers, no, not necessarily is this. Sorry, not necessarily is this not like Rabbi Akiva. Afilatayim Rabbi Akiva. This could even be according to Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Hanamili, when does Rabbi Akiva say that you don't keep an eved that doesn't want to make a bris? Heichi deloi asni ba'adei. When there was no condition made in advance about this, that he's going to be an eved and remain a guy. So if he's being bought as an eved to be a yid, he has to make the bris right away. Aval heichad asni, but if a condition was made, asni. So then this condition was made, and even Rabbi Akiva will agree that he does not have to make a bris. Rav Kahane, so again Rav Kahane says, so I said this halacha in front of Rav Zvid from Nerda that this, even Rabbi Akiva agrees to this. And he said, if so, when Rabbi Akiva explains that the pasuk that speaks about an eved adol is only an eved that you bought right before Shabbos, there was no time to make a bris for him. Why doesn't he give this example over here that we're talking about an eved that a condition was made with him, and therefore you don't make a bris for him? And Rabbi Akiva agrees to this. So he answered him back, and according to you, I already told you regarding the other case where he was paisik from his behavior, that there Rabbi Akiva agrees that he doesn't have to make a bris right away. He could have answered that as well. Ella, similar to what he said before, chad mitrei utlas time become. Rabbi Akiva gave an answer, one of two or three options that we have over here of how it could be a case of an eved adol. So you're right, this case, in all these cases, Rabbi Akiva agrees, but he gave that option of the case where he was bought right by Ben Hashmoshes. Yosef, Rab Chanina, Bar Papi, Rab Ami, Rab Yitzchak Nafche. So these three Amoraim were sitting Akilo, the Rab Yitzchak Nafche, on a patio by the house of Rab Yitzchak Nafche. Yosef v'Ka'amri, and they sat and they said as follows: Ir achas ha'isub Eretz Yisrael. There was a city in Eretz Yisrael. V'leiratzu avadel lamol, and the avodim, the Eved Kananis in that city that were bought, did not want to make a bris. V'gilgulu imam, they kept these Eved Kanani with them. At Shneimos HaChodesh for 12 months, and then after this, when they didn't want to make a bris, that's when they sold them back to Goyim. Command, according to whose opinion is this? Now, seemingly, this is connected, of course, to what we said before, the machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, whether you can keep him for 12 months and so on. But the Gemara is going to bring another brais there, another opinion about this, because as we'll see, there's a specific argument regarding in Eretz Yisrael. What happens when you have Eved Kanani in Eretz Yisrael that doesn't want to make a bris? So he says, Kihai Tana, goes like the opinion of the following Tana. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braisa, it says, a person that buys an Eved from a guy, and this Eved doesn't want to make a bris, and so you wait, and you're around, and you see what's going to happen over 12 months. After 12 months, he didn't want to make a bris, so then you sell him to a guy. Rab Shimon ben Elazar says, you do not wait around with this Eved that doesn't want to make a bris if it's an Eretz Yisrael. Why not? Because this guy, he's being bought as an Eved, and he's not accepting upon himself to make a bris, so he's a guy. And a guy, Chachamim will geyser that he's tamei like a zav. And therefore, if you're going to have him in the house, so he can make things that are tar, it'll make things tamei. So you can't keep him. And also a city that's near the border of Eretz Yisrael, this Eved that this does not agree to make a bris, we can't keep him at all. Shema Yishma Davar, he might hear about something regarding by the Yidden, something that's private or that's relevant for the security of Yidden. And he'll go out of the border of Eretz Yisrael and he'll go tell Goyim what he hears that's happening by Yidden. So here we see in Eretz Yisrael, there's a specific reason why you shouldn't keep an Eved that doesn't want to make a bris. Tanya, Rab Chananya, Benoish, Rabbi Gamliel Loime. Rab Chananya, the son of Rabbi Gamliel, said, why do we see that Geidim in this time have afflictions upon them? Pain comes upon them. What did they deserve this? If they chose and they became a ger? Answer is because when they were not megayer before, they did not fulfill the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And as Rashi here says, as long as they're goyim, the Eibusher does not punish them because they get their punishment lost in the future. But now that they're megayer, so the Eibusher punishes them now to cleanse them from that aveda that they have. So it's really for their benefit. Rabbi Yossi says that can't be the reason because ger shen is gayer kekotn shenei ladami. When a ger becomes a ger, he's like he's born again, and you can't punish him at all for what happened before when he was a guy. Why do they suffer? Because they're not careful with the details of mitzvahs to fulfill them properly, like a yid that learned it and knows halachas well. So for this they are punished. Abba Chana says another reason, Mishum Rabbi Lazar, in the name of Rabbi Lazar, because they don't do what they do out of love for Hashem, they do it just out of fear, not to be punished in Gehenna or other punishment, and therefore they're not doing it with a full heart. Chayrim say, because they waited. After they saw what Yiddishkeit is, and they didn't come immediately to be Megayir, and they waited to come under the wings of the Shechina, so for this they're being punished. My kara, where do I see a pasuk for this? Because it says in the pasuk, Yishalem Hashem pa'olech tehi maskurtech shleima mi'im Hashem. So this is Boya speaking to Rus. It was Megayer, and he's telling her that the Eibusher should give you your reward, a full reward. Mi'im Hashem alekei Yisrael asher basal lachzes v'goyim. You came to come under the Shechina. So the word basar, Rashi says, is an extra word. You came quickly and you did not wait, and therefore you get your full reward. But if someone waits, so then that's the suffering of a ger when he doesn't come exactly on time when he sees Yiddishkeit.